Welcome to math class. So you guys are in math. I am not. I'm sorry I could not be there today. But we are going to go ahead and we're still going to do a lesson. So we are going to get out your notes and we're going to kind of continue on with the lessons because as you guys are going to see, I think you're fully capable to keep going. So we're going to keep going. And if we go to our notes, we have two vocabulary terms which you're going to be able to define using your book. We're going to talk about them right now, but there's decimal coefficients and fraction coefficients. At any point, you can pause this video, fill that in for yourself. But decimal coefficients and fraction coefficients are basically when we're talking about the coefficients and when they're not whole numbers, they're actually rational numbers for the decimal or the fraction. So we're not always just going to have whole numbers. We're going to incorporate some of these. And so that is kind of the new part of today. So we are going to just dive right in today, and we're going to start with these one-step equations with a decimal as a coefficient. So when we do them, we actually solve them the exact same way that we've been solving our one-step equations with the whole number as a coefficient. So we go ahead and we look at it, and we're like 16 equals 0.25n. And some of you are like, Mrs. Schultz, I know the answer. But we're going to keep going. So we're going to show our work. I am going to let you use a calculator today, but that just means you have to show your work even more. Okay, so we have to make sure we're writing everything down. If you're typing something in your calculator, you're writing it down in your paper. So let's start with 16 equals 25 hundredths times n. And as you guys know, we start off with the problem. We write it down. To solve a one-step equation, we've always talked about it being 2 steps to solve it. Or, well, we have 2 steps in order to do this. So our first step was just to kind of split up the equal sign and make our upside down t. So go ahead and do that. Remember, as I'm doing this on my computer and you're seeing it on the video, I do want you taking notes and writing it down. So make sure you're taking notes. If you need to pause at any point, please pause at any point. Now we're going to do our second step, which if we see, we're trying to figure out which property of equality we're going to use here. So if I'm seeing a multiplication problem that's connected to the n, then I'm going to do the division property of equality. So let's go ahead. Let's do that division on both sides to make sure that our equation stays balanced. And we're going to divide by 25 hundredths because that's the one that's connected to the variable. And we want our variable alone. So we divide by 25 hundredths from both sides. And over here, our 25 hundredths will end up canceling out and we'll just get n down here. And over here, yes, you're going to be able to use a calculator, but please make sure that when you're inputting it, we're inputting it how we're supposed to. For instance, this one is 16 divided by 0.25 because the 16's on top. And as we read problems, we read top divided by bottom. So when we do that, we actually get n equals 64. But we want to make sure that we did plug it in correctly, that we did do everything right, and so we still are going to check to make sure that our answer is correct. So we're going to go over here and we're going to check our answer. We're going to write it down, and mine's going to actually fill it all in right away. All in one step, I believe. Yep, there we go. So I wrote 16 equals 0.25 times 64, and I went ahead. I didn't just write it down. I actually typed it into my calculator, and I did 0.25 times 64, and I hit equals to make sure that indeed I did get that 16. And so because I did, I get to move on because that means I'm right. Then we have a word problem. So we love our word problems. So here it says, Jaya's coach agreed to buy ice cream for all of the team members. Ice cream cones are $2.40 each. Write and solve an equation to find how many cones the coach can buy with $30. Now, like I've told you, a lot of times you guys go straight for that answer. But look here, it wants me to write and solve an equation. So I'm not just going to look at how to solve it. I'm going to actually write an equation. And my hint to you is going to be, we're going to write a multiplication equation. So if you need to pause for a minute and think about it, I want you to think about it. And what is it that you can do as a multiplication problem with this? Well, you might be thinking, well, I should do $2.40 times however many ice cream cones I can actually get, and that should equal 30. And that would be a correct assumption, which is why, that's how we solve it. This clicked a little off, but that's okay. So I got $2.40 x equals 30. That was my multiplication equation. And then I need to go ahead and I need to solve it. So I split it up and I divided by $2.40. And I get x equals 12.5. Now, no one should tell me I need to buy 12 and a half cones because I don't know what ice cream store you can go to and get 12 and a half cones. They're probably going to look at you like you're a little crazy. So we want to make sure that we are thinking this through. Can I buy 12 cones? Hopefully your answer is yes. Then it's, can I buy 13 cones? Well, no. You don't have enough. You can only buy 12 and a half. So your answer isn't 12 and a half, but your answer is that Jaya can buy 12 cones. Okay? If you want to replay that and go through those two questions, feel free to replay that and go through those two questions. But right now, we are going to move on to this problem. It says 3/4 x equals 12/20. Now, here's where I want to make sure we're understanding a couple of things. One, I need you to remember what a reciprocal is. We haven't done them. It should have been something that you know ahead of time. A reciprocal is when you take a fraction and you flip it upside down. And what I really want to make sure that you know is that if I multiply reciprocals, I'm always going to get 1. So when I multiply reciprocals, they kind of cancel each other out. And here's how I will show you. If I have 5/6 times 6/5, those are reciprocals because one's this way and the other one's flipped. And so if you think about it, they all kind of cross cancel. My 6's cross cancel, my 5's cross cancel, and therefore those all equal 1. And so I end up getting 1. They cancel each other out. So although we see a multiplication problem here, when it's multiplying by a fraction as a fraction coefficient, we actually don't divide. We're actually instead going to multiply each side by its reciprocal. And you may be thinking, Ms. Schultz, that sounds crazy. I know. But the reason is because we never divide fractions. It never happens. We've never divided fractions. Division, we've always changed to multiplying by its reciprocal. So instead of making this a multi-step thing, we just go straight to multiplying by its reciprocal. Because like up here, like you see, it cancels each other out. So let's go ahead. Let's start with this one. So we have 3/4 x equals 12/20. So because there's a fraction coefficient, I'm first going to split it up. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. The reciprocal of 3/4 is 4/3. So I'm going to multiply each side by 4/3. By doing this, my 4's cancel out, my 3's cancel out. That leaves me with x at the bottom. Over here, I would cross cancel and I would multiply, and I end up getting 4/5. And x equals 4/5. It works. So then I go over to my check and I actually do try it out. I do the 3/4 times 4/5. And sure enough, the 4's cancel each other out. Or, well, 3 times. Remember the fraction wrap where it's the numbers in the numerator multiply across, the numbers in the denominator multiply